when I was in high school, in junior high, I dreamed of having an art space in a space that served casual food, not a fine, and gifts. And I thought about that this morning. I was like, dang, I'm doing my dream.
Hey Islanders, and welcome to episode 90 of the Camano Voice. Today I have a returning guest back to the podcast. Please welcome Lydia Crouch. Hi, I'm Brandon Erickson, and you're listening to the Camano Voice podcast, where I interview folks around Camano Island and beyond. If you want to stay up to date on events, businesses, and even hear a little history of this area, subscribe to this podcast and share with your friends. Thanks for listening. Hey Islanders, and welcome to another episode of the Camano Voice, where we release a new episode every Tuesday. On this episode, I get to interview a returning guest who was last seen on this podcast on episode 18. So 62 episodes ago, if I do my math right. Crazy. So long ago it feels like. It's about a year and a half ago by normal time. But anyways, she's been doing a lot over the last year and a half. There's a lot of changes and things that have gone on. So I wanted to have her back on the episode, or back on the podcast. So here she is. We get to talk about some of the new projects that she's been working on, some of the new things that she's got, and she's actually been starting the Loft up at Camano Commons, which has also been part of why I wanted to get her back up here, or on the podcast. So, anyways, we also go through kind of just overalls, like the first episode we get to introduce the person and dive into their background, but this episode we got to really just chat with stuff moving forward, changes, things that we've seen over the last year and a half, and stuff like that. So really great to talk with her again. I see her on a regular basis, but I was excited to get her back on the podcast, also to talk about the Loft and just kind of the changes that have been going on. So anyways, without further ado, here's my conversation with Lydia Crouch. Hey Islanders, and welcome to another episode of the Camano Voice. Today I have a returning guest to the podcast. Welcome back to the podcast, Lydia Crouch.
Thank you. It's great to be back.
Yeah. So over the last year, I don't even remember when our last podcast was.
I don't know. I think maybe 2 years. I don't know. It's been over a year and a half, probably.
Yes,
I'm guessing.
You were one of the first. You were in that first batch that my guess.
I should know what number it was, but I don't. I don't remember numbers. So
yeah, that's fine.
Just scroll back through.
Yeah, you just search it. You'll find it. So what's new? What's been happening over this last year and a half with you guys?
Well, with my family, or with the Loft, or both, or
well, starting with you, what's your journey over the last year and a half?
It has been a journey, and I'm no exception. I mean, with COVID, I think COVID is going to become synonymous to me with saying something's really evil. It's like, oh, they were being so COVID. Yeah, I don't like the word anymore. We all had COVID. Everybody in my family had it. My 95-year-old mother had it. Rich was in the hospital on Christmas Eve and then through Christmas Day. And wow. So I don't like COVID. Yeah. And we were careful people. You know, we were masker, hand sanitizer, wash your hands after the gas pump people. But we think possibly jury duty gave it to us.
Oh,
so
no.
Another reason to not like jury duty. So we're really
terrible.
not sure. I don't know.
What was that like for you guys then?
Scary. It was really scary because, like I said, my mom is 95, and my dad passed away in October, but not due to COVID. But COVID made it so we couldn't see him, which was insult to injury. But we did get to see him in the hospital. They were super nice at Providence Hospital, and I will loudly support Providence. We've had many hours in that hospital, so they're fabulous people.
Yeah, and I was just, I've just recorded an interview with Dr. Jimmy Gerson, who works there, but just stated to him that Providence, you're never in a good place when you have to go to the hospital. It means either you're injured or someone in your family is.
Right.
But Providence does an excellent job with making you feel welcome, feel like it is a good environment to be in. You feel safe leaving your loved ones there. And we've had quite a few different run-ins where we've had to go to Providence, and they're just in this area, they're just hands down the best place to be.
Yeah. In fact, we followed Jimmy, and we had to wait a year due to insurance switchovers and that kind of thing before we could follow him there. But he's a phenomenal physician and good friend now. And yeah, we can't say enough good things about the Providence system, not just the hospital, but the medical clinics and all that kind of stuff. They're just, I mean, no place is perfect, but if they make a mistake, they own up to it and they fix it.
Yeah.
It's
all you can ask.
they're great. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. So then let's see. October was sad, but kept going. And Dad had been, he was 93. His body had been given out for a while. So we were saying goodbye, every time to the hospital, you think, is this it? Is this it? Is this it? But it was really sweet in that he died in his beloved recliner with his street clothes and shoes on. And we were singing to him, and he just went to sleep. None of the horrible stuff that a lot of people have to go through. So it was very, very tender and very sweet. We're grateful. But Mom, being 95, we're just super careful with her. Nobody came in our house. And it was like we weren't breaking any rules, even the unseen rules, and still we got it. I mean, it's just that she tunneled through. She was great. And we now are in the process of, like, Rich had his vaccines, got super sick from them, but he's all done now. And I'm halfway through. Mom's halfway through. And so.
Okay.
Power on, right?
Yeah.
So, but the rest of it has been great. I mean, I think being at the Loft, which is now the new name for upstairs at Camano Commons, that has been like my happy place. It has kept me sane. So it's been a personal good medicine for Lydia.
Yeah. Well, and I think, so that's been, this was something... so I think many of you know, but so the Dorseys, during COVID and everything, basically they really focused on, and maybe in the Jed Dorsey's podcast, he talked a little bit about Acrylic University. Mm-hmm. But obviously during COVID, like, online classes and courses really took off. And so they started seeing just these growths in it, and they really just came to this point where they're like, we either have to stay in the studio and really focus on that, or we need to focus on Acrylic University because that's really growing and taking a lot more time up. So they came to me during the COVID, and we came to an agreement, and so they decided, we're going to move on, and then we're going to give up the space. And so we moved through that, and then we were in this kind of in-between stage, and one of the things that the Dorseys said before leaving is, we really love Lydia, and we would really like her to still have a place to be able to paint. And I was like, well, we really like Lydia, so we would like her to have a place too. And honestly, just having someone up there and having some energy up there was something we were looking for. But what we got was a whole lot more. So tell me a little bit about your process of, like, envisioning what the Loft was going to end up being. Yeah,
well, it started by painting live at Jed's invitation, and got to know Jed and Renee. Loved them already, but, a couple of years up there watching how people acted up there, what got in the way of them purchasing, what allowed them to purchase art, what types of things they were looking for when they came up, and, loving the regular coffee clutch people that are up there regularly, became super good friends. And, but I would just study. If people even knew there was an upstairs, how could we get traffic up there? And so when Jed, like you said, Acrylic University was taking off, and with COVID, they're suddenly homeschooling, so there's a whole nother issue. I mean, they had technically 4 full-time jobs.
Yeah.
And I was like, you guys, and when you said, hey, do you want to stay? I was stunned. I didn't expect that at all, and was super thrilled. And so I remember you said, well, do you have ideas? And I said, do you want me to dream? And you said, yeah, go for it. I said, give me 2 days, And so we just we looked at the space, and we realized the walls needed to be freed up, and if we could get variety up there. And so when did we start? Was it October, the end of September?
Right around there. I think it was, somewhere in that time period.
Yeah, so we just rearranged the room. And then immediately We started Workshop Wednesdays, which we hope to launch again, now that we can have more than 2 people in a room.
Yep.
But we did one workshop. It sold out. It was fantastic. We had 2 others that were under registration, and COVID hit, and we were locked down. And so we had to cancel those. And it was like, oh, really? No. It's like, but so the dream was to make the Loft Camano Island's creative space, I think is the best way to say it, and just to say, it's worth the climb. Come on up. You can make it, because the stairs are harder for part of our population. And if we can make it worth it, that they can come up and sit down. And so what we decided to do was every 3rd Wednesday, we switch off what we call the theme wall. And we've had Reflect, and we've had Nest, and now we're in Fly, and our next one coming up is Bloom. So there's a theme, and then local artists, if you live on Stanwood or Camano, you can apply for free and submit art, and they can submit up to 3 pieces. We've finally gotten that standardized on the website. That was a journey for me. I am not the tech queen of America, but so that's running smoothly. And then we also have another wall, which is a featured artist. So that's by invitation, and we invite people. Try to keep a variety. We've had, we started off with Jed. We had John Ebner, who had a really good response. Betty Dortick, great response. And then we're pairing that with the podcast. And so we've got artists on the podcast, and we're just want to come around and support, because there's several guilds here, and we just want to support them all. We want to support everybody's artistic journey. But the difference for us, as we talked about it, is we don't want to be out in our art gallery. So we're more of a fine arts, home decor, and gift space. Yeah. So we don't run by gallery rules. We run by the Camano Commons vibe. So it's not, we can't kind of open the doors to absolutely everybody. We cater to our tourist audience, and our, it's a different crew, family oriented, and so we keep it really G-rated art, and really and I know a lot of people say, are you censoring? No, this is retail. You invite what sells. So it's a different set of rules, for us, but it's in a way it's more free, because you don't have to just do the whole mailing list and event kind of thing. We keep an event going all the time. So literally every 2 weeks, it changes up. Something changes up there. Yeah. So right now we have Bob Schrofer, who is what's the new name of his?
Skagit Flats.
Skagit Flats Pottery.
Yes.
Right. So he is out there. What a kick. I love that guy. He's so fun. And what I love is that when people come up, they're going, oh, look, there's Bob Schrofer's stuff, or there's Betty's stuff, and their personal friends are coming up, and so then I get to meet and connect these dots, and when I listen to them on your podcast, I was like, I didn't know that about them. That's really cool. So, yeah, I'm an avid Camano Voice listener. It's my card time. I do you first, and then I have another art one that's second, and after that I fill in. But yeah.
Well, and I think it's going back a little bit. What you mentioned about kind of watching people and seeing how they where they sit down, how they lay out, what they feel like, and all that. All of those, that whole skill set is something like that I don't naturally have. And like I listen to different business owners that do have that. My dad definitely has that. When he's done retail, he's watching people, figuring out how they walk, where they look when they're here, and then rearranges to match. And it was always something that like I felt was intuitive for him. That's not so for me. Thankfully, I have a lot of people in my life, a lot of people within the business that is their strength, and so they help me there in my weaker points. But I think that's so fascinating when people are able to do that and like really break it down. Like, okay, I think this is the problem that we're having. This is why like art's not moving, or this is why people don't feel welcome, or whatever the reason is. Being able to break that down and say, okay, I think if we just made a few small tweaks, we could increase this value of what we're bringing.
Yeah, and you make a good point because I'm constantly asking Christy, okay, how far ahead are you purchasing this stuff? How far ahead are you planning for this event? I'm I can get in the season, but she's ahead of the season because you have to be, and that is a skill set I'm learning from you guys. It's like, okay, I'm already behind, but I mean in it, but I'm behind already because so that's been super fun for me because I've never done retail. I've done retail on the marketing side, where we were, back in my days in Virginia, I was an account executive for an advertising firm. So we're filming Christmas ads and videos in the summer. And it was like, it was almost nauseating, because it's like, I'm tired of Christmas and it's May, it's like.
Well, what's great, I'm sure, is that when you have to do the reverse of that and you have to pretend like you're doing an ad for summer and it's freezing outside, they're like, okay, shorts and a t-shirt, let's go.
I know, and where can you go outside with flowers? That's why they're all staged with these blurry backgrounds, So, yeah, or shooting a year ahead. I guess some of them are shooting a year ahead.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I'm kind of glad to be out of that industry because it's a tough industry, that advertising industry. But I learned a lot, so you carry it all with you in your suitcase and try to, but yeah.
Very cool. So then you've been able to continue to kind of make it feel like it's changing up there. Was there a specific thing that kind of inspired you to make the theme wall as well as the featured artist?
I think, honestly, the artist community here is so kind. That my motivation to begin with was to thank some people who had been kind to me. Literally, I was like, okay, they were so wonderful to work with in, this event or that event. And COVID had everybody shut down. There's no shows, although we could be open because we're a food establishment. Yeah. So we were the only wall space open that I know of. So I was like, okay, how can I give somebody wall space just to be thankful? And that's kind of, and we did that first one, Reflect, and I was like, this could work, and I'm a theme kind of person. It gets me excited because I like to dream and wrap around a story. Yeah. As an artist, I'm more of a storyteller than, say, a landscape painter or a portrait painter. I'm a storyteller. So if I have to paint a person to tell a story, I paint a person. If it's a flower, I use a flower. I mean, which comes in the face. I've had to get comfortable with that because it comes in the face of everybody says you've got to find your voice and narrow down. And so I probably will never be famous because I don't. But, at my point in life, I'm in my 60s. I don't care. I'm having a blast. Yeah. So I would rather be happy than have that kind of pressure. So I paint whatever story is on my heart, and it seems to be moving well. And that's another thing that you open the doors. You gave me some studio space, so I paint live up there, and that's tremendously fun. Because people come up and go, what are you doing? How do you do that? And I don't really have any secrets. I said, here, try some. Look at this. Touch it. It's like, I can touch your painting. Yeah, why not? So, yeah, so I like that. And part of that I learned from Jed, honestly. He's a very hands-on, generous person. He and Renee both. And he constantly said, you're the boss of your own painting. And also, this is not your child. This painting is not your baby. Oh my word. How rude. That's my son calling from North Carolina, but we'll put him on hold.
Join the call.
Sorry, I forgot to turn it off. I had it off and then I turned it back on. But so that being generous side has been probably the best part because I call myself a recovering perfectionist performer. And today I even posted, I thought perfect is not always good. Sometimes, good is not always perfect. Sometimes good is better, than perfect, because perfect in my life became like a straitjacket. It looks all beautiful when you're little and you've got everything, tidied up, but then you grow up and it's really tight, to not get free of that. And so That's been honestly a lot of the past 3 years in my life of just learning not to take myself so seriously. It's going to be okay. You know, the best thing you can do is just say, I blew it. I'm sorry. You know?
Yeah.
I was talking to somebody yesterday, and this goes in the loft. I mean, I've had to apologize so many times. I mean, it's like, I'm sorry I did not communicate that well, dear theme artist. You know, just trying to get the rules out and make it clear, and to ask for advice. Like Hillary Clobber is repping her father-in-law who passed away, Rick Clobber, and he's the stone art up there. It's really amazing work, and she's just really good at tech, really good, and she runs a lot of the tech side of things for CAA.
Okay.
And she said, hey, would you be open for some input? I said, absolutely. So she kind of just gave me a list of things that I could do to communicate better. And I was so all over that. I was like, thank you. Thank you so much. And put those things in practice, sent it back to her. I said, what about this? You know, and so Melanie Sorrells is a great sounding board because she's very linear in her thinking. And so she will just take my fluffy language and go, I didn't understand what you meant. Is this what you were saying? And I'm like, yes, thank you. You know, so I think that's one thing I love about the community here, the artist community is, I mean, they come in all shapes and sizes. There's no straight definition of an artist. And, you know, met Sally Prey, and she's been around forever and ever. And I knew her work because I'd been to her shows. Super impressed by how she puts an event together.
Yeah.
But you introduced us, and I was like, well, hey, I'm happy to meet you, you know. And so I think, I don't know, somebody was saying, well, are you working with guilds or whatever? I said, no, I think the Loft is Switzerland. You know?
Yeah.
We can rep everybody in the community because we're retail.
Right.
You know, so we can open a door and just kind of present an avenue that's unique. Because I think, I don't know, I think it would be safe to say that the Commons is kind of the watering hole of the island. I mean, there's no other place like this.
Yeah, and that's really what it was meant to be. It was supposed to be a gathering place. My dad built it off the concept of, actually, he really focused a lot on a place called Third Place Books, and they're down south near the Seattle area, and I think they have a few different locations. But there was a specific location that they had a bunch of other tenants within their complex, within their area, and then they had live music. You know, they had it going many nights of the week. They had different events going on. There was always something going, and the reason they called it Third Place Books is because most of us have two main places. We have our home, which is our first place, and we have work, which is our second place, and they wanted to be the third place that you would go.
Oh, cool.
And so that was the idea behind the Commons. In fact, I think at one point he was kind of playing around with the name of like Third Place Commons or Third Commons or around, but then like it was a few too many jumps for people to get there mentally. Like, why is it called Third Place? So he ended with Camano Commons because he figured that was pretty easy for people to remember.
Yeah.
But that was really the idea. There's not a town center. There's not a downtown or a mall, or I guess malls aren't a thing anymore. But, you know, wherever. There wasn't a place that people could gather, really. And so he was trying to create that. And so, you know, however many 20-plus years later, you know, here we are.
That's amazing.
Or 15, I guess like 2007 or 8. I don't know where we are. But, yeah.
Well, I think it's great. I mean, that you guys have stayed flexible. You've changed. You have, you know, the community events. You're not only just a place, but you're a gathering place for around events. I mean, we couldn't do the Christmas tree lighting this year, but you still had a tasting. You know, you were able to flex inside the restrictions that were put up there and let the place just be what it had to be for the time that it had to be there. And yeah, I've been so impressed, you know, and constantly like I'm a watcher, so I'm learning, and it's like, okay, that was good. That was good flexing. Oh, they came, and Barry will come out with a new dessert or whatever. And I just love to see the creativity and the trust between the staff, and I'm not technically staff, but they they like me and they let me in.
Yeah.
So it's fun to feel part of something, It's like,
Yeah. Well, and that's something like with, I was just walking by the cold case and I saw the fruit tarts that Barry makes. And I walked by, I'm like, every time I walk by those, I want to grab one and eat one, which I know is bad for the business. But I was like, I love them so much. So like every time I see them, like, oh, they're here. I should grab. No, I shouldn't. I should leave them for somebody else.
I know it. I know it. Yeah. Well, and one of the things I put on, it was kind of fun. I asked a trivia question of the artists that were up. Like right now we have, as I said, the theme is fly. So we have Amy Martin, Debbie Kluge, Russia Hanson, Melanie Sorrells, and me. And it seems like, and Rick Clover's work that Hillary brought up. And so I asked each person what their favorite Camano Commons order was from the bakery. So it's on the reader board, so you can get some refreshing ideas. But it was fun to see what everybody eats, because I'm a single tall latte, so boring, And give me a chocolate croissant or anything chocolate. And Barry mostly puts chocolate out on the weekends, which saves me from eating way too much chocolate. So. And for those who don't know, Barry is the head baker. I guess we should say who Barry is.
Oh, that's a good point. I am trying to get him on the podcast. He is... We are also working on getting, actually one of our other staff members trained up in bakery because Barry's like, I'm always perpetually behind. He's like, thank you for inviting me for the podcast, but can we wait till we get some people trained up so I can actually take that time?
He's a good leader too.
That's fine, Barry. I'll let you. But I can't wait for that one because when I'm talking with him in like our manager meetings and stuff, I forget how much experience he has and his background. And he's like, well, when I was over here, and I'm like, wait, you lived overseas? And like for many years. And so like, yeah, I'm really excited for that podcast because it's going to be super fascinating. People are going to learn a lot about our head baker.
Yeah. So. Yeah. And if you're lucky, Jen is the, I don't know anybody's titles, but Jen is in charge of.
Espresso bar manager.
Okay. She's the espresso bar manager. And so she trains everybody to make the best coffee. And this morning, I'm not going to name places, but I was out of town. Off the island, I should say, not out of town. And I went to a place that I love the people, and I ordered a latte, and I took 2 sips, and I was like, this is sad. I need Jen to fix me a cup of coffee, And I've become, really accustomed to really good coffee. Mm-hmm. And it's crazy. And if you're lucky, Jen will do some art on your phone or some of the girls, when we're back into lids off territory, this kind of stuff. But I get a consistent cup of coffee because I order the same thing all the time. I like it to taste like what I order every time, and it does. It's like, okay, I get the same drink all, no matter who the barista is, because she trains everybody really well, and everybody's so kind, and so
good.
yeah. And then Emily has been this like, what's Emily's formal title? See, I know what people do. I just don't know where their titles are.
Yeah, so she's technically executive assistant.
Okay.
She really does a lot more than just that, but, that was the first title that we came up with, and so we ran with that one.
Yeah, she's like everything, girl. She's amazing. She's got a bright head, good business sense. And I just watch her think outside the box and make people comfortable, keep things, and you've said many times, Emily had me do this, jokingly, but she keeps things rolling along. She's great.
Yeah. Well, and the other big change that we've been able to have as of late is actually starting in, I think March was the first month we officially switched over to this. We were doing it a little bit throughout the Christmas season, but starting in March, actually, my wife Brittany started working on Mondays in the marketplace. And so on Mondays, I stay home with the kiddos. Thankfully, I don't have to do homeschooling or anything with them. I usually have a couple errands that she leaves me. Starting this month, I've got to take Peter to somewhere, and so the other kids come with me. But it's, I only have about one thing I'm really focusing on that day because I can't homeschool.
Even though you were raised in that environment.
Exactly. And then I'm realizing, like, oh, Mom, you did a lot of work for me.
Appreciation coming up.
Yes. But she started working within the business, and so she's working on Mondays, and we started her because we actually had a need. Like, we didn't have someone to work juice bar on Mondays. So we had her start working in there, and she kind of got a lot of these things systematized and
Nice.
worked on there.
Nice.
But she has a mango allergy, and we use frozen mangoes. So after breaking out pretty badly, we were like, oh, let's move you from that department. So we figured out a path forward on that, and now she's working on some auditing of basically some of our back end stuff.
Nice.
And it's stuff that, like, for me, I would just be like, I quit if I had to sit there and go through all of this stuff. But it's what she has done over the course of her life. And so she's like, oh, this is what I do for our household. Like, I'll just do it for the business. And so she's going through and auditing, like, making sure that we're getting good prices on different things. And
Wow.
that we're doing that we can't save by switching things around. And
I need a Brittany.
yeah. So it's been really neat to be able to see that. And she's doing, just what she was raised with was her mom did a lot of this. So, they grew most of their own food, but anything they did have to buy, they would buy in bulk, and they would plan ahead, and so they lived off of much less than they should have been able to live off of.
Wow.
And my wife does the same thing, and we have 4 kids, so a family of 6. Our kids eat a massive amount of stuff, and my wife, there was a few years, I guess a couple years back, she was really like, man, I just feel like I could save more in our budget, like in our food budget. Like, I just feel like I'm overspending. So she went online and was looking at, like, what the government says, like, if you're in, like, this threshold or this threshold, like, this is what your food budget should be based on number of people in your family. So on a family of 6, like, this is what your budget should be for, like, and this is, like, I don't think if it's poverty, but, like, just barely above poverty. Like, if you were at this level, your food budget's probably going to look like this. And she was below that.
So she's like, I'm doing better than I thought I was.
Yeah, and then, on top of that, like, we eat organic, and she cooks, healthy, and our food budget is still lower. But I'm like, that's not something that just anyone can decide, like, tomorrow,
No.
I'm going to do that too. Like, this is years of growing up this way.
Wow.
And it's ingrained in her.
Wow.
So she has this skill set that she's been gifted from her parents growing up doing this, that, like, not anyone can do this, because this is what she was raised with. This is normal for her.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Well, we should get her to do a workshop.
Yeah.
Yeah. She could get people started, because we eat mostly organic. I won't say all, because we like sugar too much, but but it's expensive unless you learn how to do it, and to eat seasonally. And then invariably, if something goes bad because I don't get organized and cook ahead, you feel it's just horrible, feeling to look in the fridge and go, oh my word, that was so expensive and I let it go bad.
Yeah.
It is. I mean, it takes an organized mind to get it where it's a system and you're not wasting food.
Well, and not just that, like, this is something it's long ago, and I think it's dead now. I was, as a kind of a joke, as just kind of a fun, like, side thing. I'm like, I'm just going to put some time into this, just, like, as an outlet. I started this blog of a husband of a hippie wife or something like that. and so I wrote these short stories of just, like, different things that happened, of, like, things that I went through. And it was, like, talking about the fact that, like, I never know if I'm allowed to throw something away in the fridge, because it could be bad, but that doesn't mean it's not going to get used.
Oh, I know. Oh.
So, like, we buy a lot of, like, if we use raw milk or something, she's like, well, that can be substitute for buttermilk.
Yeah, my mom did that. Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, so it's old, but do I throw it out or do I keep it? And then, like, she does that with lots of different things. And then, like, she threw out my water bottle because she's like, well, it's, even though it's
BPA free.
BPA free, she's like, plastic still only has a shelf life of this long, so you need a new water bottle. I was like, but that was my water bottle. That's the one I took on my 50-miler hike.
I know. Yeah,
She's like, yeah, but it's
all
really
that
old.
bacteria from that 50-miler is resting around in your mouth now. Yes.
I know, it's building my immune system. It's preparing me for COVID.
That's so good. Oh, I know. We couldn't break my dad. My dad, for some reason, collected plastic, but he wanted us to put it in the dishwasher, and so he could use plasticware again. We're like, no. Plasticware, you need not to eat off plastic, period, if you can help it. B, if you put it in the dishwasher, you've melted off what little protective coating is on it. You know, it's like, no.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so funny. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Well, and one of the things, I feel like I'm turning this around, but you switched from fudge to juice bar.
Yes.
And I think that's, I mean, talking about nutrition and healthy choices, I think a lot of people are loving that. I'm watching them discover it. I'm looking over the rail because I'm still, you know, even though it's not anything I have anything to do with. I'm like, oh, people are really getting this. Because one of our orders was from Russia. She likes the 16-ounce ABC juice. That's her
Yeah.
favorite Camano Commons order. And I don't even know what that is. But
Yeah,
I guess
well,
I'll have to
the
go try.
sad thing is we no longer have the beet part of that. We
oh,
don't
well.
carry the beet now, but we had the ABC, the apple beet carrot juice.
Oh, okay.
But we no longer carry beets because there's only a very small few people that were getting it. So,
Yeah.
inventory and how much we
Right,
carry, but
right.
Yeah.
You have to do apple, banana, carrot.
Yeah,
Maybe,
bananas
yeah.
don't work well.
No, they don't. So,
They work
okay.
great in smoothies, though.
Obviously, this isn't my department. You know.
But yeah,
I love the juices. I like the green one. What's that one called?
evergreen juice.
I love that one.
Yeah,
It's
and
like
it's
a-
really been. I mean, we just passed the year. Well, I guess beginning of March we passed the year mark of the juice bar. And talk about a great time to launch juice bars right when COVID strikes, and
There
so
you
suddenly like
go.
nobody can come in, and we've got to shut it back down because, you know, veggies go bad and not
Yeah,
enough people
yeah.
are coming in. But again, like my wife was working in that, like building it up, make sure that's the right stuff, and then she also took over a lot of our marketing efforts. Like she's done a lot of work on helping out with the photography and the copywriting and stuff like that. And she's a, like we talked about being perfectionist stuff, like that's what her kind of traits are, is to be a perfectionist.
Cool.
But she uses it in a way that she observes what other successful, like mommy bloggers or just influencers are doing. And then is like, well, we could do that in our business. Like if we just change the background of how we do our photos, like
Yeah.
don't do brown on brown if we do brown on white, or if we do this and this, and we ask a question in our comments rather
Right.
than saying a statement, you get more interaction. And like the first one she did, she was like, I'm just going to try it. And so she did it, and nobody knew she was doing it, and I didn't know. And all of a sudden we started getting all these likes and comments on one of our posts. I'm like, oh, one of our posts did good. And I look at him like, I didn't do that post.
Oh, how about that? My talented wife got in the picture. It's like, that's so good.
So she's done really well in that. And so we've got some certain, and then with Emily's organizational side, she's been like, she put it on all of our calendars, like, okay, we're doing a post this day, so we need to have it ready by that day, so it's
Yeah.
ready. And so we've got a marketing calendar kind of written into our schedule. And so, you know, all of these things are building on themselves. And so I was just looking at last month, and I'm like, wow, the juice bar is actually growing now. Like it stayed stagnant for so long, and I was like, I don't know if that was a good idea. Like maybe it was a bad idea to try and launch this thing in the first place. But we're finally starting to see some of that come through, and it's really neat to be able to see that and be like, oh, it's like people are responding to it. We now have regulars to there.
Yeah, and people, I think when they know it's there and they've tried it and it's yummy, and they start going, oh, I'm craving, you know, my favorite drink, and I can grab it and go to work, you know, because it's a great breakfast.
Yeah.
And Rochelle's granola is taking off, and it's so good. And, you know, one of her parfaits topped with her granola. Yum.
Yeah.
I mean, so good.
Yeah.
You know, so I think that's one thing I love is just seeing. You could choose to farm this out and maybe get it for a little less, but this is local people supporting local people, you know, local businesses, and it tastes better because it's fresher. It's, you know, it wasn't made and put in a freezer last year. You know, it's fresh. It's just so fun to watch, you know, and watch even the card racks feature all the local art and local photographers. And it's just like, yeah, this is us. We're islanders, and, you know, welcome to the island. I think one of the most fun comments I get up in the loft is people come up. There was a group of girls who came in from, where were they from? Queen Anne Hill or someplace in Seattle. They had never been up. And another group came in from Snohomish and never been here. And they said, people are so nice here. Yeah. I said, yeah, welcome to the island. We're glad you came, and come back. And they said, we will, And,
Yeah.
and then you start to see people come back and bring friends. And it's the island. I remember feeling that when I moved here. I moved here from Alabama, where nobody's a stranger. People wave to people they don't know. And Camano Island was like that. And Camano Stanwood community. Felt as much like the culture I grew up in as any place I had lived apart from there.
Yeah.
And I loved it. I was like, okay, this is great because people are nice. They'll say hi, Because I went into Seattle with a friend and she says, do not wave at everybody, Lydia. And I was like, okay, that's going to be sad, but all right.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and my last podcast I did with Jimmy again, Dr. Jimmy, it was again just talking about like the way the community really rallied, especially during COVID and everything. There was a lot of hardship that they had to go through in the medical community of like what they dealt with.
Yeah.
But they got to see the community rally, the people come together and help out, the volunteers that stepped forward, the businesses and the organizations that really stepped forward and said, we're here for you. We're going to help out financially. We're going to help out with volunteers. We're going to, like, all of these different things stacked up and helped out with these people and organizations. That, was just really neat to see. I don't feel like, I think a lot of communities did band together in this, but I think there's a lot of communities that really just suffered, and they just kind of suffered in silence, and they didn't really have this same coming together that we got to see here in the Stanwood Camano area.
Yeah, and Rich and I are working with Safe Harbor right now to put some videos together for them for their online fundraiser. But I got to video 3 different patients that came out of Safe Harbor, and very educated people, very well spoken. All your stereotypes of people just fall by the wayside because people have gone through some really, really tough stuff, and Safe Harbor has been there for them.
Yeah.
And, you come out just in tears, like this is the most beautiful place. The people are amazing there, and it's there's a way to give to your community no matter what your skill set is.
Yeah.
And one of the things that was cool, we interviewed this guy named Wilbur, and he said, I don't have any skills that would work here in this clinic. I mean, he's a carpenter. He said, but I was so impressed with the volunteers that I went out and volunteered for Habitat for Humanity. And he said, up until then, I wouldn't have volunteered work for anybody. I worked if you paid me. He goes, I was missing out. I was just missing out. And that's one thing I love about the island. You look at the playground right there in the Commons. The whole community volunteered. Greg Gilday and the troop put that together. And I think Rich and I did Kid Care way back when the playground was built. It was all volunteer building.
Yeah, I think Rotary was the kind.
You're right. You're right. Yeah.
Yep.
So, and the Commons was there. It's like, we have space. You can. I forget. You guys did a whole bunch toward that, but. Yeah, it's been great. Yeah. Good. It's just a sweet place to live, Yeah. And Coastal Bank, it's like we, I guess we've just gone under our community because the Commons is, I think, a little microcosm of our community, but I remember my mom almost got scammed in one of those fake sheriffs calling a fake, FBI agent and all that kind of stuff. And she had her account, her money in several different banks, and we called and told them what was going on. And one of them said, well, we can't shut your account down. We were like, what? And so we closed that account and took it to Coastal. Coastal said, yep, we've shut it down. We'll keep in touch with you. We'll watch for any weird stuff coming through. And they just, were there for my mom, so she didn't get taken advantage of. And it's like, we just love this community.
Yeah.
There's a lot to be said for small town life,
Yeah. Yeah, and I honestly just shout out to Coastal, but like with COVID, with everything going on, I know I've mentioned it in the podcast before, but they really were on the forefront of that. They were so quick to when information was coming out, they were prepping stuff before they even had information.
Wow.
But they were like, especially like if you think back to like the PPP, the first round, when so many businesses were just not even know if they would make it.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
there's this lifeline, but you've got to get your application in now.
Yeah.
You know, they were like, okay, it's Monday, go. Like, we're accepting applications. Most banks, at least in this area, didn't even start working on the application until that Monday. Because
Wow.
they were waiting for the government to release, okay, we're going to need this, this, and this from the businesses. Coastal, the week before, was guesstimating on, well, I think the government, if I was them, they would say they would want this, this, and this.
Wow.
They put their whole application together and released it to many small businesses and said, this isn't the official one, but this is going to have most of the information we need, and there's going to be a few things we're going to need after.
Yeah. And then pull your papers together so people had a chance.
Yes.
Yeah. Wow.
And so it was just crazy how quick. And then on so many other occasions, they just have stepped up so quickly in this community and been so quick on that and so quick for feedback and everything.
That's incredible.
They've just been such an excellent bank to continue to partner
Yeah. Yeah. When we started, when Rich and I had a nonprofit, they were the only people who would work with us before we got started. And starting a nonprofit it is a round robin, because you have to, they said, we'll give you the nonprofit status when you have the nonprofit status, kind of is how it works. It's the strangest
Sounds about
process.
right.
It's like, well, how do we get it if we don't, how do we, it was the strangest thing. We were like, none of it was logical. 1, 2, 3, 4, you know, I mean, you can get it, but you just have to work hard. But the banks want you to have a nonprofit bank account. You need to have your nonprofit status before you can get a nonprofit bank account,
Right.
But you can't get a nonprofit accreditation until you have a nonprofit bank account, so Coastal's like, yeah, we'll work with you, and it was like, and so when I started Lydia C Creative Life, I'm a tiny little business, I'm just a little sole proprietor out there doing my little art and t-shirt thing, and garments. Oh, and that's the other thing I forgot to mention.
Yeah.
But yeah, they said, yeah, we'll start you. I think I had $200 to start with, and it was like, yeah, here I am. And I said, no problem. And they treated me like I was a big girl, it's like, but that's the other exciting thing, was to get artware going, which is all fair trade. It took me 3 years to find a place that didn't require me to order like 200 t-shirts.
Yep.
And this way I can keep up a fresh selection up there. I'm only going to order a limited amount of most designs, and when they're gone, they're gone. And another one will be up there. So that's kind of super fun for me. And my passion for fair trade has to do with wanting to join the fight for human trafficking. And so most of the proceeds from artware goes toward that. And I'm super excited, Ben, because I found a place with really good quality, and you guys have been great to let me have some stuff up there. And so, they're selling, and Rich built me a rack for my birthday. And it's funny to get I'm excited about a clothes rack. Woo! But that was my favorite birthday gift this year. Yeah, and starting Young Love, we have onesies and baby stuff, and we have a beach, very much a Camano corner up there that'll always be for people who just love the island and can come up and get a painting of a crab or a coastal scene or something that makes them feel like they're here, or for their beach house. And and Chrissy started doing that downstairs too. We're trying to marry the upstairs and downstairs together so that it feels like one place.
Yeah.
And that's been super fun too. So
Very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think it's been really neat, the evolution of that, and I like what you guys have with the artware. I love the idea. In fact, we want to kind of follow that in some of the stuff we're looking at.
Awesome.
We're just still in the process of getting all that together, but
it's a process. It's a journey.
But we're really looking forward to that, and we really, like I said, we really enjoy having you up in the loft, and I'm glad that you've made it what it is.
Thank you.
So.
I love it. Thanks for letting me be there. It is the best. It's my happy place.
No, it's great. Well, even though you've answered some of these, we won't go through all of them, but I do like to repeat certain ones because I think I have changed them since you've been on the podcast. So with the rapid fire questions, what is a purchase of $100 or less that you have enjoyed the most over the last 3 months?
Over the last 3 months. A ferry ride, a ferry ticket. We walked onto the ferry and went to Friday Harbor and had dinner. And so that ferry ticket purchase just was insanely wonderful. Just
Nice. And then I think we've gone over what you would do with a guest coming here, but is there anything you would add to that of what would you do if you had a visitor come from out of town?
Yeah, it's funny. I don't remember what I answered last time, but of course it would bring them for coffee or something at the Commons. It was always my first, because that's what I did before I was at the Commons. It was like, I think go for a walk. We're finding trails. I think that's one favor COVID has done for everybody, especially the Northwest people, is like, hey, what new trail have you found? Because we could all, take our mask off with our families and until you come, it's funny to watch people. We're all, it's like, there's a person, put your mask on, it's like, it's like this knee jerk.
There's the one like trying to grab my mask. I'm like, I'm missing it. I can't get it over my ear.
Or the shame you feel if you walk in and you forget you haven't put your mask on. It's like, I am so sorry. It's like
I saw a guy in QFC this week that as I was walking by, I'm like, oh, he doesn't have a mask on. I'm like, I wonder. And then he realized it right after I walked by, and he was like, oh my word. Like, he was just like, oh no. And like, he was feeling his pockets and his shirt pocket and like was trying to find his mask like desperately. Like, he felt so bad. I was like, oh, he was just the guy that forgot his mask. All right, cool.
I know. Or then how irritated you feel when you get to the front door of QFC and you realize my mask is in the car and it's pouring down rain. I have to walk back to the car, go get my mask. But you do because you care about your community. That's okay. So yeah, but I think finding trails that we have never walked before and that kind of thing has been really fun.
Yeah.
And I love to ride bikes, but we would typically go to Heritage Trail for that. But we haven't done a lot of it because it's just been so gray this year, so rainy, just wet. So I'm ready for some sunshine.
Yeah.
If I could purchase that for under $100 and import it, I would do that.
All right. Since your time up in the Loft, is there any other fascinating or interesting people in this community that I should interview next?
Well, I suggested Jimmy, and you got him, so I'm thrilled about that. I keep thinking that we should interview Brandon Erickson again because it's been a while. So throw Emily and Brittany and I in a little machine gun fire some questions at Brandon and just see how your life has changed. Just because you've had a huge transition, it's got to be. I would ask you about what it's been like to take over from your dad to, that's no small pressure, because your dad's a well-known entrepreneurial sort. He's insanely proud of you. I talked to him the other day, but yeah, and maybe you and your sister together would be a fun podcast. I think that would be awesome just to see a brother and sister in business coordinating businesses that are next door to each other, that are intertwined but separate because you own separate businesses, but you work together. That would be, I think, super interesting. So that would be my suggestion. Yeah.
Right, very good. All right. And lastly, if you could have a message on a billboard right as you're driving on Camano Island, what would that say?
Don't give up. I don't know what I said last time. I know it was something different, but definitely now it's like, just don't give up. Just hang on to hope. Let go of your worries. I see so much fear right now. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm not going to say vaccine choices because I still really am not convinced one way or the other. But most of the choices I see are made from fear.
Yeah.
And that makes me so insanely sad. Is that a thing? Makes me very, very sad that we've become a culture that's afraid.
Yeah.
And it makes us not trust each other, and it makes friendships strained at times on these issues. And I don't think that's a big enough issue to strain a friendship over. Right. So I think I would say don't give up. Don't give up on your friends. Don't give up hope. Don't give up on your ideas and your dreams. I mean, okay, I hadn't even thought about this, but when I was in high school, in junior high, I dreamed of having an art space in a space that served casual food, not a fine, and gifts. And I thought about that this morning. I was like, dang, I'm doing my dream. It's like, oh my word. It hadn't even crossed my mind. I was like, this is what I've always wanted to do.
Yeah.
And in your dreams, you think you have to run it all, you have to do it all. But I'm getting to do the part that I like. I would be horrible at food service. I mean, I can burn anything, so, and the whole administrative side, I'd be horrible. I'm horrible with numbers, but I get to do my favorite part. And, so yeah, don't give up. Dream.
Yeah.
And pursue it. Baby steps. My goal for COVID has been what's the next baby step I can take?
Yeah.
And you turn around and you go, oh, babies can go further than you think. It's like they go places. So,
yeah. No, I think that's very important. I think doing the there's been a lot of business books written on it, but like things that they're just commit to doing a small thing once a day. Like whatever that small thing is. What's one thing you could do that would move you forward, either in business, at home, in your spiritual, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And do that one. Commit to doing that one thing every day. Something so small that you're like, oh, I could do that. Whether that's do 10 push-ups every day. You're like, okay, anyone can do 10 push-ups every day.
Well, almost anybody.
Well,
I don't know if I could.
you don't have to do them all at once.
I might start with one.
Or whatever it is, like you choose this small thing, and then at the end of 100 days, you're like, wow, I just did a lot of things. Like, I got a lot done by doing that one small thing. And so, very good.
So good.
Well, thank you again for joining me on the podcast.
Oh,
again.
thanks, Brandon.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's such an honor to work with you guys. It really is. It's a good thing we're not on camera, because I'd be tearing up and doing that embarrassing thing on camera. So,
well, it's great having you here.
Yeah, thank you. I love it.
And Islanders, I will talk to you on the next one. Well, a big thank you to Lydia Crouch for joining me on the podcast again, and thank you for listening. If you haven't already, be sure to rate, review, and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast platform. It really helps us be found by other Islanders like yourself. And for more information on this episode, you can go to CamanoCommons.com/EP90. That's CamanoCommons.com/EP90. Thanks for listening, and see you next time.